Samurai Jack Season 5, Episode 5, 96. I want to mention this before I start the review, but after this review, I'll no longer be doing the number thing because there's really no point in doing that. I also do the Roman numerals when I put it in there for the actual review. So I decided to stop doing that because it's not, I don't know why they have them numbered that way. It's not the number of the episode in like the series, because if it was in the 50s, this would make a lot more sense and it would be like 55, I think it would actually be this episode. But I don't know why they number them that way, so I was like, there's no point in me doing that because it just sounds weird. So just wanted to put that out there for anyone that might actually follow my reviews. I'm just going to stop doing that. I'm just going to say it's this season and this episode. So random, note ahead for reviews aside, good episode. Once again, we come back off of the last episode where Jack ends up saving Ashii, and they end up sticking together in this episode. It was actually pretty fun. It starts off with basically exactly with the last episode, and they're on this very small island, and Ashii's having this dream where she sees her mother as like the moon, which I thought was actually really cool. And Ashii's just trying to figure out the truth about the world. It's like, I just want the truth. Like, he could have killed me, but he chose to save me. What is truly the answer? And I just love the way they went about it. And I'm assuming this was in her head. I wasn't 100% sure because I'm like, it is Samurai Jack, it's magic and this and that. So I don't really know exactly what this means. We also see, I guess technically where the episode really started. I wanted to say that, but technically where the episode really started, we see some more magic. So, and I'll get to that because it's, it was a cool opening. But, with them on the island, I was like, I can't really tell if this is 100% magic or not, especially with the way they did it, because at first I was like, okay, she's probably dreaming and going through what her mother would say to her. And then I was like, maybe this is actually happening. And then the way it works is like the mother fades away as the moon, and then the sun rises. And Ashii is actually standing there awake because she hears the water splash behind her. And she instantly turns around. So I was like, it started to confuse me when it got to the end. I was like, maybe that was actually happening. It was really hard to say, unless it was supposed to be like she was, standing while dreaming or something, if that was supposed to be the semblance. But I was like, by the end of it, I was like, I feel like maybe that actually happened. I kind of doubt it, because if that were truly the case, then I feel like there, if the mother could mentally find her, I feel like there would be some way, some workaround, like basically a magical GPS, and they would have found her as well as Jack and just killed him in the night. But the way they continue on is Jack ends up, getting like this water dragon, and he's able to control it, so they're able to get to land, and they continue to travel. And Jack decides that he is going to tell Ashii. Well, really, he wanted to show her because she asked, and at first he said no, and then he kind of switched it because she was just like, fine, whatever. So then he decided that he wanted to show her, and it was kind of cool the way they did it. And they go to a lot of different locations, and we see, I believe, I don't know if it was technically the Old Town, but it made me think it was of like the first location he went to in the very first episode, because it was just that futuristic tall city. Unfortunately, we don't see a ton of it, but we see a little bit. We see him like stealing clothes from all the different merchants and stuff, and then they're able to sneak their way up to where like this alien comes to the planet, and the guy walks in and he's like, we hear that Aku basically accepts criminals that are from in the galaxy, and so the guy's like, you're gonna have to live here, and the dude's like, but it's occupied. And I love the way they did it, because the guy that was telling him like it's where to live, he turned and looked like he was so mad when he said it. It was like, is that going to be a problem? As if he was about to kill him for not being evil enough to kill these people. And then he's like, oh, I get it now. He's like, no, it won't be a problem. And Jack's like, see, the innocent and the weak are preyed upon, while criminals are basically given safe havens. They're just able to do whatever they want, which is be more, be greater criminals. So I love the way they did that, where he explains things to her, and they ultimately end up coming across this village, which I thought was really cool the way they did it, because the guy that they end up saving knew who Jack was on sight, and for some reason I thought that was a really cool thing. I'm sure everyone knows him because, the posters and everything everywhere. But it's the first time we've had it in this show, and it was 50 years ago, and I'm sure he's been doing stuff in between. He's still been saving people, because even in the first episode, the girl knew that the guy knew, that it was Samurai Jack. So it was like, people know what he looks like. But for some reason, it felt like a bigger deal, because it was like, it was already, things were already destroyed and chaotic. And I would just imagine, considering where they were traveling is the main reason it, caught me off guard. Because I would imagine he hasn't been to the city in a long time, because he's by himself. He's actually wanted 100% of the time, as far as, villains are concerned. So I would assume he kind of stays away from like the big cities at this point, compared to the original series, where he was just some random dude at first, and as the series went on, he became more and more wanted. because it kind of spread out that, you know, Aku wanted him dead. So it was just interesting. He goes to this guy who was an odd mix of like Beast mixed with Wolverine, and he kind of had some Yamcha stuff going on. He had like that little scar. But it was kind of funny. I was just looking at it, I was like, man, he makes me think of all three of these characters. And like his side profile made me think of Yamcha because the hair went up like just a little and he had the scar. I was like, that makes me think of Yamcha. But he totally was like a mix of Beast and Wolverine, which is further exemplified, especially the Wolverine thing, because all the little girls have the same, have like the Wolverine hairstyle, or at least kids. I don't know if they're specifically all girls. They're all voiced by girls, or a specific woman. But I love the way they did that too. So, you know, Ashii is kind of learning through this crazy experience, like, crap, Aku is the evil here. And she wants to help Jack, and they decide that they are going to go and find these children that have been taken. And so they come across the children who are like sent into like this crazy fury with this high-pitched noise and a little chip in their necks. And Ashii ends up having to deal with this guy who I thought was a robot because that's how the show works, and then it ends up being a dude in the suit. I was like, oh, I totally didn't expect that. He like took the helmet off for a second when he was charging up, and then he put it back on. I was like, I definitely didn't see that coming. So I thought for sure it was just a robot doing its job, and it was like, no, that's an actual dude in a robot suit. So it surprised me there. But she has to take him on, which results in her being like shocked a bunch. But ultimately she's able to escape, even though that shouldn't have been possible. Like, she was clamped down. I'm like, first off, that should have just squished her. But she's able to slip out of there, and she beats the guy up and takes him out. Jack is like on the run. I love the animation they did for that with him running, especially when he got into the house. And he's like, you know, trying to like burst all the kids off him like the Hulk and stuff. He's like getting swarmed, and then he like breaks out, and he's pushing kids off, and he's trying, you know, the kids, so he doesn't want to hurt them. But it was a really great scene. You know, they split up really early on. I would have loved to have seen them together a little bit longer, like being chased down, and maybe Jack stopping Ashii from actually like punching the kids and stuff and defending herself. It was like, you know, no, they're being controlled, they're little kids. I would have loved to have seen that. I think that would have actually been pretty cool. But ultimately, they get chased for a little bit, and Ashii realizes, like, man, it's that sound. So Jack picks her up, which is really funny when they did it, because, you know, in animation, it's like, okay, characters look a certain way, but you always assume that that's just the artist's representation. And when characters interact with each other, physically, it's different. But in this, they show, like, no, Ashii, as skinny as she is, that's exactly how people can literally touch her. Because Jack did like this, and he was able to pick her up with both hands, basically closed almost, and he was just like, boom, and he threw her straight up. And I was like, okay, that really shocked me. I just, like I said, I figured artist representation. I didn't think she could literally be like, you know, you could put one hand around her and almost, you know, touch your fingers together. But he was like, boom, and lifted her up. I was like, okay, I guess that's literally how her body somehow works. So that made me laugh, just because I just had an assumption because it was animation. That's just the representation. And it's like, nope, that's literally how skinny her body is. Like, it's like this big, and he was able to toss her up. So that made me laugh. But I love the way they did the action. And then the way the episode ends, I think, is phenomenal, because she's fighting this guy. She ultimately ends up beating him, and she's able to, you know, basically short circuit the chips in all the kids' necks. And Jack, like, loses his mind because all the kids do kind of look like they're dying. I assumed that they weren't dead, but of course he didn't know that. Like, especially as violently as it looked, it definitely looked like they all got fried and like they just dropped to the ground and were dead. So he flips out, and that's when the samurai on the horse shows up again, and it's just like, it's time. And unlike every other time where it's just like he's talking to himself and he sees the, you know, like this ghostly samurai in the distance, it was just like, yes. Like, he snapped after seeing these kids seemingly die in front of him, and that was it. He was just like, I'm done. Like, sure. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I saw all these, you know, not just lives, but young lives, just, you know, 50 or so kids just kind of laid to waste or something. It was just like, boom, they're all dead. So, phenomenal ending, and I'm very excited for the next episode, which seems to focus on Ashii. So I certainly thought that that was really good. But it was, you know, a great story with Jack and Ashii and the way they ended it, going into Ashii's story for the next episode. But to jump to the very beginning, which I personally think was like the truly special element to this episode, we of course get the Scotsman's return. That was freaking awesome. It didn't go like I thought. You know, I was kind of thinking like, maybe this will happen, maybe it won't. But they go into war. Aku is like, alright, maybe a battle will kind of get me out of this funky mood. He goes out, he just, I mean, literally the first move, he turns into a ball, and he rolls over like, I don't know, 3 dozen people, and just everybody's dead. And I was like, wow, that's like half the army. And of course, the Scotsman, being as hilarious as he is, he's like, okay, this is a mistake, we're getting out of here. We find out, of course, all the girls behind him are all of his daughters, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, because I'm just like, oh, that's cool. They have like, um, Scots, Scots, all of them wore and everything, and they're like, female Scots fighting, and they're all, they're big and stuff. I was like, that's kind of cool. And then it's like, they're all his daughters, and it just made me laugh. I was like, whoever his wife is has to be dead. After that many kids, you just don't make it. Like, your body is just like, I can't. Because that was like, I don't know, that was more I feel like it was like 100 women, and I just assumed, especially when you talked to the first girl, and I was like, okay, so that's his daughter, and all the other girls, it's animation, so, images repeat and stuff. I just assumed that it was just a bunch of different women, one being his daughter, and it's like, nope, all of them are his daughters, which is absolutely insane. So, I love the way they did that opening, and so he tells his daughters to all take off, and he's like, I'll distract him while you escape. So he's in front of Aku. Aku has to look down, and this is like the first time I feel like I know his perspective for Aku, but he's at his feet, the Scottsman's at his feet, and Aku has to look down, and I'm like, man, that would be like legitimately looking at an ant, like maybe like a beetle or something, because he just the way they did it, where he was so incredibly tall, and he's just like, and he looked all the way down. And then, of course, the Scotsman is, talking about Jack, and he's like, you're scared, and that's why you're held up in your castle like a big old baby. And he hits him with that laser beam, and it didn't make any sense, but I was like, maybe he's not dead. That was really dumb to think that. But I was like, maybe they wouldn't do that, because that's insanely messed up, to bring this character back and then just obliterate him in the opening. But he, of course, is turned to bond. And the worst thing, because at first I was like, man, they just got super disrespectful, because they killed him off. And then it was like, all of his daughters were sad. And they have the bones there, and then it's just like, and they turned to dust like instantaneously, and it made me laugh. And I was like, they didn't need to do it, make it funny like that, where it was like just frozen, and it was just like, and just poof, turned to dust. So that made me laugh. I was like, that's messed up that they did it that way with his character's death. But then we find out that his death is not the end of the character, because his blade, which is infused with Celtic magic, actually brings him back to life in spirit form in his prime, as he puts it. So we will get to see more of the Scotsman, even though technically he will be dead. He will live on in his broken sword. So I'm curious how they do that, because I feel like something might happen there where maybe he will have to sacrifice kind of his spiritual form for maybe Jack to get a new magical weapon, because of course he doesn't have his katana anymore. Maybe the Celtic sword could actually do it, or maybe Jack can infuse it with a different form of magic or something like that. So they have like Celtic magic and then Japanese magic, and they fuse it together into one new blade. And excuse me, unfortunately, maybe the Scotsman would have to give up his spiritual form to imbue the sword with even more magic. So that's kind of my theory on where they might go with that, because the sword was broken but it still worked, and I was like, I feel like there's an easy way to kind of make it where, because it's not the full sword, that's why he'd have to give up his spiritual form in order for it to work. But if it was the whole thing, they could just fuse it and he'd still be fine. And I'm like, I feel like that might be where we're headed. It could easily be wrong, but I was like, that would be an interesting theory, and it would give this character's official finale within the series a lot more weight, because it's like he's giving up a true sacrifice to relinquish the rest of this Celtic magic to Jack, because he knows Jack will be the one to defeat Aku and basically save the world for his daughter. So I feel like that might be where they're headed, but looking forward to Jack running into the Scotsman and all of his daughters. So I'm looking forward to that, but I loved it. I was like, this is a cool way to open it, and we don't see him come back. That was an unfortunate part about it. It's kind of just an introduction, so we know that it's a future episode. Basically, one of the second half of this final season is coming up, with this being episode 5. We've hit the halfway mark officially. So looking forward to whenever that comes up. I assume that it would be closer towards the ending, because I mean, even without my theories, I would just assume that it would be closer to the ending, because whether it's imbued with magic or any of that crap that I just mentioned, it's going to be for a final battle. So I just assume that they're going to meet up closer towards the finale. I could easily be wrong about that. They could meet up sooner if it is going to be the sword thing with imbuing it with magic and stuff like that. Maybe they would do that a few episodes before, and then Jack would make the final travel to get to Aku and defeat him with the brand new magical blade, which maybe he'll take the metal and melt it down and turn it into a new katana or something like that. But really enjoyed this episode. Great opener leading into a future episode. Great ending leading into the next episode, where I would assume the whole thing is going to be Ashii. I assume she'll find him like towards the end of the episode, because I constantly mention this. I feel like they can't stretch too many stories too far because we've got 10 episodes. I feel like this won't take up 2 episodes where it's, only Ashii. I think the next episode, it's only Ashii and she'll find him by the end of it. But that's my guess. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I definitely want to know what theories you guys have on this spiritual samurai specter that keeps calling to Jack. It's almost like an angel of death sort of thing. That's how it seems. But considering Jack would only see it when he was talking to himself, it's hard to say if it's actually there. With the series being as magical as it is, there is an actual ghost episode in one of the previous seasons where he goes into like a ghost house. So that sort of stuff certainly exists. Aku is literally evil magic that existed, for like all eternity sort of deal. So it wouldn't be crazy if it was real, but considering he only saw it when he was going crazy, much like in this moment where he sees all these children die, seemingly, it wouldn't surprise me if this was just another part of his mind making up this thing saying this is where you have to go or this is what you have to do. But I would love to know if you think it's an actual specter, if you think it's just in Jack's head, and where it might lead based on both of those options. And of course I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.